back to part 2 of the Dr. Jimbo Love Show featuring my main man right here, Seth Matthew.
How's it going, everyone?
Hey, we're excited. For those of you who haven't listened to our first part, boy, we invite you to go back.
Yeah.
We had a great discussion about sports betting, and Seth convinced me that sports betting might be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So nice job. Very good. It's very few times I lose in an argument, except to my wife, of course. But you know what? You brought up some incredibly great points. The economic benefits and also the viewership. The last point he brought up was about smaller teams and getting, if you bet on a smaller team, and what were the two people you said? Elon?
So I went Elon and Norfolk. The only reason why I know
Sure.
who Norfolk is, first of all, never heard of them until I was in high school.
Well, it's in Virginia.
But
They make a lot of boats there.
They upset Duke first round in
Big
March
names
Madness.
place.
It was a 215 upset.
Yeah, and Elon, I believe, is either in North Carolina or South Carolina, but they used to play University of South Carolina when South Carolina wasn't in the SEC back in the day when they were an independent. Elon would come down and play. Winthrop would play. There was a lot of schools that you would never really hear about. Coastal Carolina, you hear a lot because they have a really good football
Yeah, the
program.
football team's really come around.
Dustin Johnson, the golfer, he went to Coastal Carolina. He was born in Columbia, South Carolina, so he's a South Carolina born and bred. But yeah, Chanticleers, and they have a really neat field if you've never seen it before. Boise State was the first team to do the Smurf turf, and that was in 1984. Matter of fact, there's a great story. So one of these, a gentleman I met about 10 years ago, was a football player when Boise State initiated that blue Smurf turf. And he said that when they first put it in, they were having a major problems with ducks. Ducks were coming down and dive bombing it, thinking it's water.
That's pretty cool.
And they were dying.
That's not
So no, that's not good. So they went out there and they put yellow garbage, these big yellow garbage things all across the field to keep the ducks from coming down, and it did work. I don't know what they're doing now, but this was back in 1984, I believe, was what he said was the first time they put that turf in. Now, if you watch Coastal Carolina, they have kind of a, what would you call that color? It's kind of a light blue,
Yeah,
kind of
like tealish?
teal.
Yeah.
That's a good way to call it. And their field is teal. So it's pretty cool.
It's probably cool when you go there, but honestly, it's
hard to
weird to
watch.
watch on TV.
I like Coastal Carolinas because it's not so hard on the eyes. But a lot of the teams that play Boise State don't like the fact that they wear the same colored jerseys and pants. So you got a camouflage situation for a quarterback. The quarterback's back there getting ready to throw a pass, and they look really quick. Maybe they're looking off to another receiver or whatever, and the next thing you know, the guy's invisible.
But see, I think it's great though. I mean, a great coaching strategy. I'll give you a story about hockey here. If you ever played Moorhead University or Moorhead High School, the opposing locker room was a calming color to try to psych out the other team. So if you were intense, maybe you came out hot in the first period.
Yeah.
When you go back to the locker room in the second and third period,
Yeah.
you would go sit in the calming color. Now, high school coaches caught on, and they would keep us on the bench instead of going to the locker room in
Are you
between
serious?
periods. Because they didn't want it to, there's a lot of color association where if it's like a calming blue or
No, I
whatever.
agree 100% because it'd be the same thing if you went in and you put lavender in all of the hand sanitizers because lavender calms you and makes you tired. I mean, I know that with my son, we put lavender in his bath if he's having a wild day. And it seems to calm him down.
Yeah.
And then the aromatherapy too is a whole other thing. And someday we'll bring my wife on. She's a massage therapist at the Gaylord Resort. If you go up to the Gaylord Resort here in Denver, don't be afraid to ask for Yvonne. So I think she's the best. I might be a little biased.
Little bias.
All right, let's get into this. We're going to talk about college hockey, and Seth has some great details and some of the current scores that have just come up. But let me just give you this real quick here. We're going to do the rankings just like we did in college football, and we're going to do today is our first one, so we're not going to worry about where these guys were last week, but there was some shuffle.
Yep.
You know, we had mentioned in our preview that Quinnipiac, who was number 1, was beaten by Cornell in Ithaca on the 22nd, which was last Saturday. And so they dropped from number 1 to number 2, and Minnesota State has taken over. Minnesota State 23-5, Quinnipiac 18-2, number 2, Western Michigan 16-5, University of Michigan is 19-7 and 1, and then we come to our hometown. Yay! DU is ranked 5th, and we are going to see, and we're going to talk about this because the next team is Seth's alma mater, St. Cloud State, 14-6 and 1.
Yeah.
DU is 16-5 and 1. Minnesota Duluth, that's close to. Is that close to where St. Cloud State
So that's
is?
up north. We're about 2 hours apart, but yeah, not too far. Beautiful area, right off Lake Superior. Just a beautiful town.
Yeah, it's right there on Lake Superior, right? It's got that little bit of an inlet.
And I don't know who Grandma is, but she owns everything there. There's a Grandma's Bar, there's a Grandma's Marathon, which actually qualifies you for the New York Marathon, or the Boston Marathon. And
it's not named after anything? We'll have to look it up.
Everything comes up Grandma when you're up there.
Very good. All right, so that's Minnesota Duluth is 7, and Cornell University, my hometown. I grew up about 23 miles outside of Cornell, so I've been watching Cornell Big Red hockey ever since I was just a little boy. They are 13-4 and 1. They won a real tight one last night. Seth's going to tell you a little bit about that, but you know, since I already brought it out of the bag, 2-1 in a shootout over Dartmouth in Ithaca. Number 9 is UMass, 12-6 and 2. Number 10 is University of Michigan.
Yep.
Or Minnesota. University of Minnesota.
It is Minnesota.
Sorry about that. University of Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, 14-10 and 0. Next team is Notre Dame. Number 12 is Ohio State. Number 13 is North Dakota State, which...
North Dakota.
Oh, it's not just North Dakota.
So
University of North Dakota.
Yeah, so if you say North Dakota
sorry,
State, people might get you confused with the Bison, Carson Wentz.
Yeah. My bad. I've done that twice now. I got to be careful. All right, number 14 is UMass Lowell, and number 15 is Northeastern. And Northeastern is very close to my heart. I wanted to go there and play college basketball. Unfortunately, Jim Calhoun, who you guys know from University of Connecticut, left, and I asked him, I said, can I come play at UConn? And he goes, well, Jimbo, you're just not invited. Which was a really nice way to say you're not a Big East basketball player. And I would agree, 100%. Out of high school, I would have sat. Now, I would have loved an opportunity just to compete at that level after my second year at Mansfield.
Heck, just to be on the bench, to be a part of that atmosphere, just a great thing.
I would have competed every day in practice against these guys. Sherman Douglas would have been ahead of me if I had gone to Syracuse. God, I wish I would have done that. You know what? Just to say, you know what? I competed against the best. Now, I was lucky enough to do that in high school, but we'll get that to a whole other story. All right. Seth, take it away. Tell us what's going on as of last night. You've got some of the scores.
Yeah, so I'll offset this right now where those rankings, they mean something. But the thing that you don't see, like college football, for the typical part, minus a couple teams, a loss usually drops you pretty far down in the rankings in college football. Now in hockey, you play a 2-game series, and St. Cloud State, Denver, North Dakota, Duluth, they're all in the same conference. And they...
What's the name of that conference?
They are the National Hockey Collegiate... what is the last word? NCHC.
NCHC.
Oh,
but just
National
remember,
Collegiate Hockey.
Okay. And you got to remember the teams on the East Coast, like Cornell and all of the Ivy League schools, they are in the ECAC conference.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, that ECAC conference is a very famous conference. It's an old conference. It's been around forever. And... you know, any of the Ivy League schools, and you'll see the banners if you go back to these facilities, and it's just a very storied history. If you're interested, just go on the internet and you can read all about it.
Yeah, and I think college hockey is probably one of the best sports that is out there. Like, you can't even compare, because
I love it.
They do single elimination when you go to the national tournament. There is no series, things like that. But the cool thing is, so North Dakota, well, this
So tell them real quick, you just gave that tease. How many teams qualify for the Frozen Four?
4.
No. I mean, how many?
I got that answer right though. But no, so
how many teams are in the tournament to get to the final?
Overall, they do a 1 through 4 seeding, and they have 4 different areas. So you're gonna have 16 teams.
There's 16 teams.
But like, here's how it is: you win your conference.
So there's a round to get to 4. So the first weekend, do they play 2 games, or do they spread it out so you play 1 game each weekend, or are you playing 2 games? Kind of like they do it in the NCAA basketball tournament.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way they do it, they whittle it down quick. So the way the first round works, you usually play back-to-back. So if you're a 1 seed, you go take on the low seed, but then you play the next one. Then you get to basically down to, what are you down to then? You're in the Frozen Four.
The first weekend, you play 2 rounds, and you're already to the Frozen Four.
Yeah, and then
so it's a 2-weekend tournament.
Yeah, and you end it quick.
Okay.
And you know, a lot can happen in there. Unfortunately, Easton Brzezinski broke his leg last year for St. Cloud State when they were going to the championship. And, you know, he was a big part of our team, and they got crushed. But it just happens. Yeah. But the big thing is going into this, St. Cloud State had already beaten North Dakota once. They're at their home. And then all of a sudden, they got into penalty trouble the second game. We lost that game. Well, now they're in North Dakota. And you know what? They just didn't show up. And it happens. When you have college athletes, they sometimes don't show up. They just got outplayed.
Especially playing on the road.
Yeah, and the crazy stat is North Dakota hadn't scored a goal in 100 minutes. So you're looking at almost 5 periods. They scored 7.
7-0.
7-1. We got one.
Oh, you did. You got off.
So we were down like.
Was it an empty netter?
No.
Did they pull the empty net because they felt bad for you guys?
They should have. I would have really appreciated that. But you know what? They just got outplayed every single period. North Dakota won every period. St. Cloud State snuck one in. I believe it made it 1-3 at time, and you know the game just got away from them. You know,
that's okay.
Happens.
You know what? And again, this brings us back to what we were talking about in some of our oldest shows, and we talk about how teams prepare and how long they're on a bus. Now, do you have any idea how many hours it is from St. Cloud State to Fargo, North Dakota? Or can you approximate?
It's about 4 or 5.
Okay, so they probably busted. I don't think they flew in. So, you know, that was pretty much the same amount of time that it was for us on our longest trip was about 6 hours. But when you're slammed and you're jammed in a bus, okay, your knees are up against you, you know, you got a guy sitting next to you, but the guy who sat next to me was Freddie Coleman, who is at ESPN Radio since 2004. Freddie, if you're out there, I wanted to say hello. I've been sending you the shows. I hope you got them. And it's always a pleasure speaking to you. But anyways, you get off the bus and you're like, oh God, and you usually get there, at least we did, about 3 to 4. And we'd go right to the stadium and we'd do our walkthrough.
Yeah.
So the walkthrough is there for a reason. It's there to wake you up. And then from there you go to a team meal. And again, that was one of the things my coach was a very big stickler on. Don't overeat, right? Mm-hmm. Now, we go to Sizzler. Love Sizzler. Man, I miss Sizzler. Ever been to a Sizzler?
I've never been to a Sizzler.
God. Okay, Sizzler's like a steak place, but it's I want to call it lower end, but it's not what you call primary. But
it's not like Ocean Prime, but it's
no.
But it's great food.
Well, and you go in and you order your stuff and you get a number and you walk down and they prepare your steak, and it's just, you know, I love Sizzler. I miss them. I wish they had them in Denver.
Well, I'm glad you brought up like eating before. So I actually was watching, obviously, hockey.
Yeah.
Edmonton Oilers were playing, and I heard a thing on Leon Draisaitl from the Edmonton Oilers. He will not eat past noon. Doesn't matter when his game is.
Interesting.
The day of his game.
Yeah.
He said he'll eat after. So if they're playing a late game, they're playing at 8 o'clock at night. Don't finish till 10:30.
Yep.
He will not eat.
No, that's a great
after.
point. No, that's a great point because I remember on games that we were playing, big games, especially when I was younger, as a freshman, when I was just beginning to break into the lineup and start, I wouldn't eat. And I'd have just bread or something. And then we'd stop on the way home. And the coaches used to always tease me because they're like, oh, look at Gulick over there. He's saving his meal money. What is he doing? Is he going back to campus? What are you doing with your meal money? I'm like, Coach, after the game, you watch how much I eat. I will just and I would. I'd just heap my portions. So anyways, after that, after you're done, what you do is you go back, and we had the women with us, traveling with us, the women's basketball team, which was wonderful. Actually, it was a great dichotomy because the women, at first the women would sit up front and we'd sit in the back. And you know what happened is we ended up becoming such good friends and so close with the women that a lot of the guys started dating these girls. So they were all, paired up and stuff. But it was really neat. So we'd go back, we'd watch the women's game. Now, during the women's game, of course, you have time to walk around the stadium. I used to sneak out of the stadium, actually, and go walk around campus. And I got in trouble for that a couple times. But, I was always just curious. So
what do you guys got?
I'd go to the student center, you know what I mean? I'd go and get an ice cream or something. And, really back then I was, young, and I'd be checking out the college girls on their campus to see, what the talent was like. And, I know that's bad, but come on. There's nothing wrong with looking, right? Anyways, let's talk. I just totally lost my train of thought.
But yeah, we keep going. But yeah, no, I think the most underrated thing, as much as bus rides are tedious and kind of wear you out, they do create a camaraderie that you don't have. I remember long trips for hockey in Minnesota, same with soccer. It was a good bonding thing before the game. It created team unity. And you know what? It is tougher coming off a road trip, but that's why typically teams have better home records. They don't have that travel in there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk real quick. Now, Cornell last weekend, and we mentioned this in our tease in the promo, they lost to Princeton. Okay, just to give you an example. Okay, Quinnipiac played Princeton and beat them the weekend before 9-0. Okay. Now, Cornell turns around the very next night in Lina Rink in Ithaca and plays Quinnipiac and wins in double overtime. So, what happened between Friday and Saturday last week in Ithaca, New York? Was there a food poisoning outbreak? No. What happened was these kids, they're young kids. Obviously, and this is what Scott Howard has told me, who's an assistant coach for Cornell, they completely just looked through Princeton and was thinking about Quinnipiac. Maybe that's what happened tonight with St. Cloud State. Maybe they're going to come out tonight and really, because a split is not so bad.
Yeah, and I think St. Cloud State is going to come out. They're going to be firing. The big thing is that they probably had, so we didn't talk too much about it last week, but they destroyed. They won 11-1 or 11-0 in their first match against Miami, Ohio, and then they came back. It was 11-0. Then the next day,
it was 8-0, right?
It was like 8-0 or 8-1.
That's a lot of points.
So you're crushing a team. So you're on flying high. You kind of feel like you're invincible. And North Dakota just grounded them because, to put that in perspective, DU is a top 10 team.
Right.
But they played Miami, Ohio this week, the same team that St. Cloud State destroyed, and they went to overtime and only won 5-4.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, and you got to remember, these kids are only 18 years old to 22 years old. Maybe you got a couple guys that are, in their fifth year, or we have the super fifth year now, that's sixth year because of COVID. But you're talking maybe 23, 24 at the oldest. And most of these guys, when you're 18 to 22, think about it, back when you were that age. I mean, I remember back when I was that age, and it's just, you're a bundle of emotions. And it's very easy.
Maybe they threw a bad breakup.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe they failed a test. Maybe they have a big exam coming up. You never know. DU and St. Cloud State. Let's talk a little bit about next weekend and the game itself. Now, St. Cloud State comes down and will be playing at the Denver University Arena, which is right off of 25 and University. If you are local, I highly suggest that you buy a ticket and come down and catch either Friday or Saturday night or both games. Which games are you going to?
So I might go to both. I'm right now debating. I have tickets for Saturday's game. The real reason why you should go down to is, and it could have played a factor in how St. Cloud State lost to North Dakota. Right. They have a couple players that may be Olympians as like a 22-year-old. And their coach, this is why I know they'll bounce back tonight, he's going to be the assistant coach of Team USA during the Olympics.
Very good. So yes, obviously he's very well respected on a national level.
So I will guarantee you, after spending a night there, licking their wounds, that St. Cloud State is going to make this game. Now, can I guarantee a win? No. Right. But I guarantee we're looking at a 4-3 high-powered offensive game, and St. Cloud State's going to come out firing tonight.
And it makes a big difference too. When we would play a tournament down in Philadelphia, I remember that the best part of traveling, to these places was the Saturday that you spend in the hotel.
Yeah.
I would study or I'd play cards, and we'd get a chance to, if there was any of the other teams that were staying in the hotel, and sometimes there were other sports that were staying there. It was wonderful because you get a chance to talk to them, and that's how I got to know all those guys from University of District Columbia. We talked about how many sneakers I got from those guys. That was a lot of fun.
Well, the cool thing is too, so when you go in, grab a brochure. I know a lot of
Right.
people don't like grabbing a program for a game
Yes.
because it's something to carry. But when you're watching college hockey, their draft does not work the same as as normal drafts, where like NBA, they went to college, now you're drafting them. College football, you're drafting them after, 2-3 years now you have to be committed?
3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe they're 3 years.
So they're drafted already. St. Cloud State has roughly 5 to 6 players that are drafted pro. Now,
Wow.
when you're drafted, you don't have to go to the AHL. You don't have to go anything. They let you play because you're not getting paid by them when you're drafted.
Right.
And they'll watch you develop. They'll send you report cards. One of my buddies, his name was Luca Kunti, and he played it. He was supposed to play at St. Cloud State, but he accepted money because Europeans have different rules.
Right.
So he played a great pro career over in Europe. But he was sitting there, and Tampa Bay Lightning were sending him report cards on his development. And so it's not something that you just pull somebody up or you have a farm team set up for them right away. You let them develop.
Now, you folks have heard all about my, whatever career that I had in college. Seth, tell them a little bit about what happened to you, because you got a chance to play on a really high level of hockey, right?
Yeah, so, I went out and I played a little bit in the junior system in Minnesota, but mostly I played high school.
Explain the junior system to our, because I don't even know what that is. Is that a pro contract?
No, so the junior system is something that you go to get to the D1 level, because there's people like Blake Wheeler, you guys might know him, he's in the NHL.
So it's like a prep school that a lot of these basketball teams and a lot of these basketball players do before, between high school and college.
Yeah, so basically you put your basic college career on hold.
Okay.
Because you know what, if you weren't good enough to make it to D1 or where you wanted to be,
right.
This is a great area that colleges go and pick players that they might have missed, because there's a lot of hockey out there and it's hard for them to get scouts to every single game.
Right.
I'll bring up Joe Hartman's name. He played at Miami, Ohio when they were really good. He came from St. Cloud Apollo. We didn't have the greatest record at the time, but he was a standout player.
Right.
So he went and played for the Alexandria Blizzard in juniors, and the next year he got to go to D1 hockey. And so this is just like a great farm system. Now, St. Cloud State, I was never great enough to really get up there. I played a little bit with the club team. I love playing in the adult leagues, but they have so much talent there in hockey. I remember even in the college adult leagues, basically, where you played for fun, the rec leagues.
Yeah.
There were players that were in the state tournament. There were players at high levels, and it was super competitive just for fun.
No, and that's a great point. So when I went to the University of South Carolina, we played intramurals, and we put together a basketball team where I had Willie Scott, who played for the Kansas City Chiefs, and basically I went around campus and just recruited the best graduate students that I could find. And in the University of South Carolina, they have 2 64-game tournaments at the end of the regular season, and then the 2 winners of the 64-game tournament get to play each other for the overall championship.
Yeah.
We were in the championship 4 out of the 5 years that I was there. And here's what would happen. All the football players at University of South Carolina would play. They were allowed to play. So in these tournaments, now you remember, you're playing how many different games? There's you're probably playing like 4 games or 5 games? But anyways, the teams we would beat, okay, especially when we beat these really highly competitive football players, they would grab all their friends and come and root for the other team. So by the time we got to the end, it was the closest thing to me playing in a stadium again. And these guys wanted to kill us. I played against Deuce Staley, okay? Oh my gosh. Deuce Staley is one heck of a basketball player. Now, for those of you who don't remember who he was a running back. He was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers picked him up. That guy was, oh my God, he was such a beast on the basketball court. And it was so much fun to play against him because every time we played against him, I made sure that I got my fouls in. You know, if I had 5 fouls, I was doing 4 on Deuce. Because Deuce was he was so aggravating. So anytime he would go in, and he'd always go in and do a double jump stop, and then he'd go up in his big football frame, and he'd lay it up, and I'd just come through and bam! I'd hit him as hard as I could, and I'd be like, hey, I'm going to get my money's worth. You know, it's an intramural game. But he always remembered me. You know, he was, and I really enjoyed watching him throughout his NFL career. So, did you have anything like that happen with you?
Yeah. So I don't know if they are allowed to, but I know in St. Cloud State they had a rule: you could have 1 club player, and you could have 1 D1 athlete on your team. So my friend Dan Dunn was the goalie for St. Cloud State, big goalie. I believe he moved back to Canada, but he was allowed to be on my team, and I was like, hey, you know what's going to be the best part? We're not giving up any goals if you're our goalie. So we always went to the championship with him as goalie, and it was just awesome. And same with, these kids, remember, these D1 athletes are still young kids.
Yeah.
So we had teams get kicked out of intramurals because I remember at this time, Jared Fessler and Ben Hanowski, great guys, both played on the same team, and they tried to hide that they both were on the D1 St. Cloud State team.
Did you ever have any fights? Were there fights?
No, for the most part. I mean, everybody is super chill. Hockey's one of those sports. It's super intense. You'll fight the guy maybe especially when you play at a high level. Yeah. But at the end of the day, everybody's friends. Like, nobody hates each other.
Yeah, we were very highly competitive, okay? As a matter of fact, Hooters sponsored our team, and we ended up going to all across the Southeast when Hooters was opening up all their restaurants. So one thing about being a graduate student, you cannot get in a fight with an undergraduate.
Yep.
It really can mess up your scholarship, your funding. So, I remember these guys would get so frustrated with us, and someone would take a swing inevitably, and we'd always be like, whoa, we can't, And so, you don't want graduate students, guys in their 20s, beating up 18-year-old kids, especially, the football coaches were there watching too.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to do? Go punch some kid and then ruin his chances because hurt him. But I tell you, they didn't care about us. There was many times, and Deuce Daly and I got into it a lot. Matter of fact, I went in for a layup, and he basically took me into the mat. And you know what? He did. And I remember he hit me, and I was like, all right. So I got hit by an NFL player as I was laying the ball in. I know what it feels like.
Hey, claim to fame.
Oh, my God. I mean, he hit me hard. And then, then I'm laying there, and I'm like, oh, my God. And I reach my hand up, and he kind of goes, and he reached down, and he picked me back up. And then after that, Deuce and I weren't so mean to each other on the court. We actually became, semi-friends. But, take your medicine, man. Intramurals is a whole nother animal.
Yeah, I love it. It's honestly the greatest thing, especially because if you don't want to take that long process now, some people get gifted. I mean, if you're a great player, obviously Blake Wheeler didn't take any time waiting until he went to the University of Minnesota, and you get picked right out of a high school hockey tournament in Minnesota. But when you don't get to make it and you love the game, that's why we play intramurals. It's not to quote the movie, but for love of the game. Yeah. You can't get away from it.
I just looked at the time, Seth. Guess what? We've got 2 football games tomorrow. Did you realize that?
Almost forgot. College hockey kind of took my attention away.
So we've got the conference championships tomorrow, the AFC and the NFC. The AFC game, of course, is going to be played in Kansas City. Cincinnati Bengals. Hey, I'm telling you, man, they have not been there since 1988, the year that Seth was born.
Yeah. Okay,
my brother is a huge Bengal fan. He's been a Bengal fan since 1975. And I can just imagine what he's going through. I know that, a team that hasn't had any success like Cincinnati, they have to be nervous.
Yeah.
So just before we get into talking about it, and Seth, I'm going to let Seth talk all about the game. We're going to analyze that game first. Let's remember about what happened last weekend with Buffalo versus Kansas City.
Well, that was a tough one.
Patrick Mahomes, 13 seconds left on his own 25-yard line, orchestrates a drive and scores a touchdown and ties the ball game up. Now, I am a firm believer, and I teased this a little bit in the preview, that you have to learn how to win at the most elite level. It doesn't always come down to if you have the most talented team. I give the example of the Chicago Bulls. In 1989 and 1990, they lost the conference championship to the bad boys, the Detroit Pistons. Okay? I'll tell you what, Michael Jordan is a very competitive individual. And you know what? I guarantee you something clicked when he lost in 1990. Because in 1991 when they played him, and that is a series, if you ever get a chance to watch a series from back in the day, Michael Jordan basically took over. And the Bulls went on to win 3 consecutive, and then, of course, Michael Jordan went and tried to play baseball, and then came back 2 years later, and came back 1 year later. Yeah. And ended up winning 3 more. I'm a firm believer that Cincinnati, I hope that Cincinnati doesn't pull a Buffalo Bills. I would love to see Cincinnati beat Kansas City and be in the Super Bowl. Seth, what do you have in this game?
Yeah, so the biggest thing about that Bills-Kansas City game, too, is so crazy that the players really took over. You have offensive coordinators and things, but if you watch the clip that ESPN posted, Kelsey said, hey, he basically coached a wide receiver and said, hey, if you run this route, you're going to get open. He caught it. Kelsey goes up to Mahomes and says, hey, I'm going to run this route. It's not what was called.
Right.
And when Mahomes goes to Highgate, he just yells, Kelsey, do it.
No
Kelsey, do
kidding.
it. And they get within.
So I wonder what the old coach there at Kansas City, who's the offensive coordinator there? Do you happen to know it offhand?
I don't know it offhand.
And that's okay. It's not that big a deal. But I wonder what the offensive coordinator was thinking when these guys were doing this.
But you know what?
I love it.
If you take away the ESPN clip, he gets full credit.
Right. Well, here's the deal. Back in the day when Bradshaw was the quarterback for the Steelers and they won four Super Bowls in the 70s, you guys realize there were not people who sent plays in back then.
Yeah.
The quarterback called the play. There was nobody signaling from the sideline. You know, Bart Starr, all those old quarterbacks, Joe Namath, Roger Staubach, all of those guys had to come up with the plays on them for themselves. I guarantee you in the huddle, someone like Bradshaw was going to Stallworth and Swan. Okay, it's 3rd and 8. What do you guys? What are you going to run?
Yeah.
What do you
guys
think
feel?
you should run? You know, how do you feel? You know, or you know, the audible at the line. That to me, when I see a quarterback audibling, I get excited because now I know that this quarterback has seen something, okay, did the right prep, and is finding a way to beat the defense.
The most famous words in Denver, basically history since I've been here, Omaha. Peyton Manning. But to go with this game, I mean, I'm going to start this off and just say Kansas City, you're winning this game. But
I think so too.
My heart wants Cincinnati.
Me too.
2 reasons. One, I love Joe Burrow's swag. He's partying with his team. He has the confidence. Did you hear McPherson's what he said when he went to go kick the field goal against the Titans?
Oh, yeah.
He basically yelled at Joe Burrow and said, hey, looks like we're going to championship.
Yep. Now, Burrow got knocked down how many times last week? 9 times, just like Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
9 times.
But, I mean, and this Kansas City team's a proven team. But what I do like about the Cincinnati team and what intrigues me is the future ramifications they're going to have on this draft coming up after this season. Is they took Joe Burrow from LSU. They went and got Jamar Chase from LSU. They have familiarity, and they took a team that has been kind of the bottom of the division for quite a long time. And now they are a force to be reckoned with. I'm going to start seeing some NFL teams take over this strategy and start pairing people up. We saw it with Tua and Waddle, Alabama.
Yep.
And you know what? I'm just looking forward to seeing how this is going to different shape the game. This is going to be your moment where you look back and you said, this is where it all began. This is where the NFL started.
You know what? I completely agree with you, and that is an awesome point for Seth to bring up.
Yeah.
Keep going. What else you got?
Yeah, and so, I mean, you still have Tyreek Hill. You still have Kelsey. Mahomes, you're just a winner to begin with. The only loophole I see that Cincinnati can exploit is the defensive side of the ball. Kansas City's defense has not been tough.
Right.
The Broncos, you made a Broncos team that has one of the worst offenses that I've seen them have in a while look good. And that's hard to do. And so I think the Cincinnati team might be able to take them because Cincinnati did beat them at Arrowhead week 17.
Now, Seth brought up another great little parlay. By the way, there's this little team called the Denver Broncos that really dominates our sports scene here. 24/7 and 12 months of the year. Even when the Broncos aren't playing, if you watch or listen to sports radio, the Fan 104.3, you listen to Slareth and those guys and the Drive, all of them are talking Broncos football. I couldn't figure it out when I first got here. I was like, they have the Nuggets, they have the Avalanche, they have the Rockies, they have the Rapids. How much time do you ever hear them devoting to that? Anyways, so the Broncos hired a new coach. He was the offensive coordinator for the Packers. It's Coach Hackett. So if you can't hack it, whack it, right? Is what they say. I mean, that's what I've always heard. But so Denver's moving towards, instead of going with the last two coaches, which were defensive gurus, it looks like they're going to try to find a coach that can compete with the high-powered offense that is in the AFC West.
Well, I also think it's an enticing move for Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams to come out here. That's been a rumor for over a year now. You know what? I'm excited for this offseason.
What do you think the percentage is of those two coming here?
So I'm pretty sure I know Aaron Rodgers has a place in Hawaii, but I know his girlfriend lives in Colorado here somewhere. Yes, she does.
Oh.
And that could be motivation. Now, Davante Adams, you don't need anything for him. You just need Aaron Rodgers. He said to Aaron Rodgers when he knew he was in his last year of contract, where you go, I go.
Right.
And you know what?
That's awesome.
It's going to be exciting.
So we know it's a package deal with these two.
Mm-hmm.
Well, interesting. You know what? I could get into seeing Aaron Rodgers every single week here. And the Broncos, again, will win another, what I call quarterback sweepstakes.
Yep.
And, hey, whatever. It'll just make the AFC West that much more competitive, and the overall football quality is going to be really, really high in the AFC.
Well, and you know who makes the worst quarterback then in this division if Aaron Rodgers comes here? It's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. It's not going to be Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And you know what? It's not going to be Herbert. It's going to be Derek Carr.
Derek Carr
is going to be the bottom of this division, and he's a capable quarterback.
Oh, he is. He's no bottom feeder by any stretch of the imagination.
So this is just going to be exciting football if this can actually happen.
Yep, excellent. All right, so our next game, of course, is the Rams 49ers. Seth brought up a great point yesterday. We were talking a little bit about this in our prep meeting. It's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a row.
Sure is.
And who's won twice? The 49ers, right?
Yep, the 49ers.
Okay. So Matthew Stafford and the boys are going to have their work cut out. The game is in where? Is it in SoFi or is it in San Francisco? It should be in San Francisco, right?
No, it should be. No, it's the Rams. It should be with the Rams because.
Well, the Rams play in SoFi Stadium.
Oh yeah.
So the SoFi Stadium is where the Super Bowl is this year. They share the stadium with the Los Angeles Chargers, if I'm correct. Am I right?
I believe so.
Because they're not playing in the Coliseum anymore.
Nope.
Okay. So which team had the better record?
Matt Stafford did. They only had a couple.
So we know that it's going to be in SoFi. So we're going to see 2 games, possibly in a row, played in the same stadium. Plus, we have the same opportunity of this year, just like with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay got a chance to play a home game in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So if the Rams win, they're going to have it kind of quote unquote, because the Super Bowl isn't going to be all the Rams fans. Trust me, that's a worldwide event.
Oh yeah.
But go ahead. What do you got on this game?
Yeah, so this game's intriguing to me because if you've heard me in previous weeks, not a big fan of the 49ers. I think Debo Samuel is an amazing player. I think George
University
Kittle
of South Carolina,
is,
baby.
Yep, and you love him too.
I do.
George Kittle, great tight end, just an explosive player.
Yeah.
I just can't get sold on Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think he's that good. If you look at that Packers game where he only had a couple completions in the whole first half.
I know. You just never know what you're going to get with him.
Not like a series,
No.
a half.
Yeah.
And so you're leaving it at that, and so I don't have confidence in this team. Now the Rams, the difference of them, Von Miller found his stride. Mm-hmm. You also have Aaron Donaldson, that is a beast. On top of Cooper Kupp, the Triple Crown winner. And for those of you who don't know what that is, most touchdown catches,
horse, is
most
he?
receptions.
He's
He
not
is
a horse.
not. He might as well be. I've never seen a workhorse. You see him the last game for the Rams, I believe he had over 150 yards, and he is
an elite receiver.
And as much as it kills me, I mean, I'm not a big fan of you, but you're a great player. Odell Beckham is on this team.
I don't like Odell Beckham.
I just don't like the showboating but you know what? Great player. Can't take it away.
He's the number 2 receiver.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about this before. The reason why Juju Smith-Schuster had such a great rookie year is because Antonio Brown was getting double covered. So look for Odell Beckham You know, he could have a breakout game.
Yeah.
And he's got the talent. As much of a jerk as I think he is, you know, I just, you know, trouble seems to follow him.
Yeah, and you know what? I hate trouble players where there's off-field issues. I'm all about the consistency of the game, but you know what? A lot of people love him. I don't think he's a terrible person.
Well, he's an incredible athlete.
It's like the Antonio Brown thing for me, how he left mid-game. It just took away from the game for me. And you know what? I like to focus on the game. I hope you put up 200 yards and you dominate.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just don't want to see any of the off-field issues.
Just, there's no reason and there's no place for it. The prima donna wide receiver, the Terrell Owens, you know, he's the one who started it.
That's my quarterback.
Terrell Owens?
That's the one where he talked about Tony Romo when he threw back. He started crying on me and saying, "That's my quarterback."
And no one even knew who Terrell Owens was until that 1999 playoff game when they beat the Cowboys and Terrell Owens blew it up. But, you know, the prima donna thing, I'm from the 80s. I'm a player in the 80s. You know, we didn't do any of that stuff. It was showboating.
Yeah.
And you know what? No one wanted to watch a bunch of glory boys out there showboating. You made your shot. You won. You know, the worst thing I ever did was a guy was getting in my face and I pointed up at the scoreboard and I said, "Read the scoreboard." That's all you have to say. When you win and you're walking off the floor, you know, or you make a great shot, make it look like you've been there before.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and speaking of someone who hasn't been here before, Matt Stafford.
Yes.
You know, I have a soft spot in my heart. Great guy. Stuck with Detroit longer than I think he ever should have because I've always known he's a capable quarterback.
Yep.
He just didn't have the pieces around. I'm really rooting for the Rams in this one. I really think they take care of business. And I think we're looking at a Rams-Kansas City Super Bowl, which I could not be more excited for. Now, if it is the Bengals, I'm okay with. Now,
I am too.
49ers, though, I just don't know. There's something missing on this team. I can't put my finger on it. But you know what? I'm taking the Rams.
But they
in this
did
one.
beat the Rams twice this year.
And they showed up.
You know what? They've got game film that they can look at, and they have a path forward. Now, granted, I think the Rams are a different team, especially with Von Miller firing on all cylinders, than they were during the regular season. But they're division rivals, okay? There's nobody who knows each other better in the NFL than division rivals.
Win 49ers, this is your chance.
Yep.
This is 2 straight playoff rounds I have picked against you.
Kyle Shanahan,
There's 3.
Right?
This is 3.
It's Kyle Shanahan, right? He's the coach. Or is he the Rams coach? No, he's the 49ers coach.
Sean McVay is the
John
Rams
McVay,
coach.
yeah. So it's Kyle Shanahan. And we have a very, close relationship. I mean, Kyle Shanahan played for Texas A&M, and I remember his dad, Mike Shanahan, and Mike used to go into Del Frisco's all the time and hold court in the back there with the piano. And every once in a while, his son would be there. And I remember shaking his son's hand and congratulating him on a catch that he made while he was playing for an A&M. And here we go, full fruition. He could be the coach of the Super Bowl.
Well, and honestly, the one thing that is keeping the 49ers in this over and over, great coaching. I honestly can't say a bad thing about their coaching staff. They are an amazing coaching staff. But I just think, I don't think you can outcoach your way into a 3 wins against a team that, if I look at the Rams roster, this is an all-star roster. And it's going to be an amazing football weekend to watch. Come to Brothers and come watch it with me. It's going to be exciting.
Yes, and Brothers is at the shops at Northfield. If you're driving up I-70 and you're going west, it's on the right-hand side. You can't miss it. You can see Bass Pro Shop, Outdoor World. We are just down the street from that. So get off at Central Park exit, get off at Quebec, whatever it takes, and come to the shops at Northfield. Come to Brothers Bar and Grill. All right, folks, we're running a little late here, so we're going to wrap it up. Next week, we're going to have a new topic. Please tune in to us on our podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, the whole works, the Apple Podcasts, and watch for our previews. We'll tease it out, and hopefully we'll be at the St. Cloud DU game either Friday night or Saturday night. So don't buy a ticket Friday night yet. We might do our broadcast and we'll get a free ticket.
That'd be even cooler.
How about that? All right, folks. Seth, anything else you want to add?
No, just come on down, have a little fun, come say hi.
Absolutely, and we're looking forward to it. Remember, Hockey Central, Brothers Bar and Grill at the shops in Northfield. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great weekend. Enjoy the games tomorrow, folks.